What a crazy ride we're going to have today. Well, hey there. Welcome back. How are we going to talk about photos and then end up talking about robots? What a crazy ride we're going to have today. Depending on how old you are and what era you grew up in, or what your gen is named, X, Z, Y, Alpha, etc., you'll sink in with one of the things I'm about to say, and then we'll move forward from there. Whether you're digging stuff up from your past, or your grandparents, or movies, you know that at one time there were pictures that were black and white, right? You know how old something is because it was only in black and white, and that's shades of gray. So whether it was a movie or a photograph of somebody, your grandparents, what have you, they're black and white pictures. And, you know, technology exists to colorize and all that other stuff, and that's fine. But the thing itself was a black and white picture, so that sort of labels the era. At that same time, people were typically dressed differently. Most people were fit. People were wearing nice clothing, as in like men walking around outside or in baseball stadiums wearing suits and hats. So the dress, the people, and the media were all kind of different. And when I say media, again, I mean the medium of the photography. Then things changed to color, but they weren't really vivid colors. They all had kind of a washed out sort of overly warm brownish sort of tone to them. And things looked kind of depressing. And then photographs became larger and clearer and more vivid and more true to color. More people had cameras. The development wasn't happening in someone's house or in a development house. Do you remember the old photomats? People were just taking their film in and they were getting it back very quickly. They were getting, they'd go to Walgreens or what have you, and they'd get their pictures, and they'd all be a lot clearer. And sometimes you'd see the ones that had the little date stamped on them and so forth. Pictures became more personal and more prevalent and more intimate. But I can tell you that if you looked at pictures from that time, you'd know that wasn't a picture that was taken 2 years ago. First of all, you're holding it in your hand, because most pictures now are digital. I mean, during that same age, that's when Polaroid was doing its thing, and you'd get your instant pictures in your hand, which was a miracle to a lot of people. And it was always shaped the same way, with the little tag on the bottom that was wider than the rest of the frame. And that's where people would write what the picture was about. If you found a Polaroid, you'd also know what era it's from besides what was in the picture. And then we slowly but surely moved into the age of digital pictures, of just bits and bytes of something you wouldn't print unless there was a reason for it. You might get it printed and put on a wall. You still might go to a professional photographer, but they're probably going to take a digital photo, a very high resolution digital photo that's stored on a hard drive that is then going to be professionally printed after it's been retouched a little bit. And, for something like that, we're talking about composed wedding pictures and portraits and so forth. So now we're in the realm of really clear, true to color, high resolution pictures, mostly non-physical. So now you're scrolling through pictures and pictures on your phone or on your computer or what have you on your screen, and you're looking at pictures. And now we're in the age that we've had digital pictures for so long that you can look at people's clothing and you can look at the quality of the pictures, and mostly you're going to look at the resolution. You're going to be like, can you blow that up? Oh, why is it so grainy? Well, that's the best that the digital pictures could be at the time. Let's back up a little bit. A long time ago, and when I say long, I mean a few decades ago, I had a phone. It was a Nextel phone. And for those unfamiliar, it was a ruggedized phone that had a little tiny LCD screen, and it was a phone that you could literally throw at someone. I remember being at a Radio Shack, which is now out of business, and the person there wanted desperately to get my phone business, because apparently that was a big part of Radio Shack's business, which I didn't know. Part of their business, a big part of their driving business, was phone sales and the resulting subscriptions. So he kept pushing me. So I took my phone and I said, well, can your phone do this? And I threw it at him. I literally threw it at his chest in a way that I knew he wasn't going to be able to grab it in time. And it just hit him and it bounced on the floor. and he grabbed it and he looked at me very sadly and he went, "No." I said, "Okay, then give me that back," because it was ruggedized. It was for people out on the street and out on the people in construction and so forth. And it had a little button, and the button would directly connect you to another phone via a beep. And it was such a cool thing, and it was super helpful. And I had it because of what I did. It was technology, and I had my own technology consulting, and I still kept that to communicate. I tell you that because that was an era in which there really wasn't a smartphone. So here's the difference in photos from that era to now as well. At the time of that, I found that there was something that I could install on the phone to give it a teeny little mini browser. It was barely anything. The internet was essentially just text links at the time. And so here's the thing. I'm walking through a mall with my family, and my head is down staring into this phone, clicking on a few things because I had just gotten it. I was the only person in that mall looking down and staring at their phone. So imagine what would happen if you took a picture of a mall today. You'd see a lot of the people looking down into their phones and staring into it. But of course, they wouldn't be looking into a tiny window. They'd be looking into a giant multicolor frame, watching videos, swiping through social media and so forth. A lot of people's heads would be down, including kids looking into iPads and so forth. We don't think much of that. Aha, we're getting closer. We don't think much of the fact that everyone has a phone, most of them have it out, regardless of whether it's at a baseball game or it's out in a park, people are hiking, what have you. In varying degrees, there's always going to be somebody pretty much looking at a phone. Explaining that to people in the 20s would be very difficult, wouldn't it? That people carry this thing around in their pocket, that they're always connected to the feelings and hopes and dreams and fears and pains of the entire world at all times. Would think we're living in a dystopian society, and perhaps they wouldn't be that far off. Again, something that we would think nothing of. Well, of course there's people with phones in the picture. Why are you saying, why? Who cares? Just take the picture. No, I want to take a picture without the people with phone. No, that's not going to happen. So, here we go. If you take a picture, again, of a crowd, baseball game, a gathering, a family gathering, inside someone's house at a party, outside on the street, you're going to see people with their phones out, you're going to see people talking, you're going to see kids, you'll see some pets, you'll see people walking their dogs, you'll see modern vehicles, but there's something missing. And that something missing is the bright flashing light that tells you what era we are in. There are no smartphones in black and white pictures. There are no mass-produced electric cars in Polaroids. There are no mass-produced e-bikes and two-wheeled hoverboards in old 35mm pictures. And there are no robots in pictures from 2025. Did you roll your eyes, or are you thinking citation needed, or are you just nodding your head? Because it's hard to look back into the past when you're currently in the past. I've done a number of episodes on time travel, at least with your mind, where you look back and you look forward and so forth. So that's what we're doing right now. We are looking at our present as the past, and it's hard to envision that. But let me get more clear on this. Tesla's robot, the Optimus, is a humanoid robot that walks around on two legs, has opposable thumb, lots of dexterity to do all the things that we would think a robot would do. And again, I can feel the pushback from you saying, okay, that's fine, people aren't going to own robots, this isn't Star Wars. Tesla is poised to make 10,000 of them this year, 2025, and then ramping up to make millions of them. But they're not the only ones. A company called Figure makes the Figure AI. Unitree makes the G1 and others. And there are a number of other Chinese companies that make similar robots. And they're all bipedal, they look like little people, and some of them are small, and some of them are almost as tall as us. And the reason that they are bipedal and look like us is because they can move around in the spaces that we move around in. They can go upstairs, downstairs, they can reach things in cabinets, they can grab things that we can grab. They're not little tiny robots on wheels that can't make it upstairs and so forth. But again, at what cost? Who's going to pay thousands of dollars for something they don't have right now? Says the person who owns a microwave and can't imagine not having a microwave oven. And an average smartphone is over $1,000. And people don't even realize that because it's built into the subscription model, which is really the way that phones work. They're a means to an end. And then it's more of a never-ending end. Before we even consider the wide general population, we have to consider sectors that are primed for that sort of thing. Imagine elderly people living alone. Imagine people who are single, who desire companionship and help. Large families, small families. People who are disabled and find it difficult to get around in certain ways, like people in a wheelchair, are challenged by stairs and lacks of ramps and so forth. People who are blind, people who are deaf, etc. Even if we take all of that out of the equation, ownership of a bipedal robot that's mass-produced is going to be as prevalent as ownership of the smartphone that doesn't exist in black and white photos. So when you see photos in the very near future, you're going to see photos with the robot in the family photos, whether they're posing as a joke or they're in the background grabbing something while the people are happily taking their photos. When you take a picture of the streets of the city, you're going to see robots walking around with people, robots walking people's dogs, robots performing general maintenance and so forth, deliveries. It's all going to be there. And I know you're in disbelief, and I know you probably disagree that it's not going to be as prevalent as you think because they're way too expensive, they're very limited on application and so forth. But neither of those things is true. Imagine not feeling like you want to get out of bed, so you tell your robot to go and walk the dog. It can open the door, it can disable the alarm, it can open up the garage door, it can make sure that the dog is okay, and you can even watch what's it's seeing through its eyes on your smartphone while you're laying in bed lazily, or maybe you're not feeling well. We're talking about the dexterity and the artificial intelligence to go make you some soup. We're talking about things that are, to you, incredibly tedious. But to the robot, it's just something that you tell it to do. For example, go through all the pantry, look at all the labels, and bring out all the stuff that's expired. Isn't that something you would do right now if you could snap your fingers? Or go through it and line up all the cans the way that I want. Make sure they're all facing forward so I can see. Go through the refrigerator and make sure that if there's anything expired, throw it away and take the garbage out. Oh, by the way, make sure you move the cans every Friday. Oh, I only had to tell you that once? Go switch the laundry and then bring it up and then fold everything. And of course it'll be folded perfectly because, I hate folded. Not personally, but you know what I'm saying. Tasks that have to do with sorting, folding, manipulating, all that stuff that right now we kind of go, ugh. The kind of stuff that comes into coaching sometimes for me, the kind of things where that comes into certain procedures I've invented, like UPS. And if you don't know what UPS is, you should go find the podcast episode on UPS. Things like that are things that would be accomplished. Don't underestimate the massive amount of FOMO, fear of missing out, of going to the first house that has an Optimus or a G1 or what have you in the background that's simply grabbing stuff and serving drinks to people. And you think, man, I want one of those. Oh, you don't have one? Oh, you should, because, they're actually pretty inexpensive now, and I just make a monthly payment, and I get updates, and I get the new model when it comes out, and so forth. Oh, kind of like a cell phone? Oh yeah, it's just like that. My daughter lives alone, and I feel much better that she has an Optimus because it's always on and awake, and it can alert her to things, and it can help her with things, and it can dial 911 in case like she falls or what have you. And the same thing for Grandma. She's got one, so it can reach heavy stuff for her on higher cabinets. It can call me if there's a problem and so forth. And she doesn't feel alone anymore. In fact, she has all sorts of fun conversations with it, she says. So I'm telling you now, on March 2nd, 2025, that we are in an era that is going away. And that era is that you can take pictures of things and there aren't any robots in it. Happy time traveling, and take care.
Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Yeah.
Join the community, patreon.com/alchemy for life.
I believe in a better day. Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days.